that will be the most successful talk or the most boring talk I've ever given. I'm not sure which.
I'm wondering, with this paucity of training, I get people who are interested in starting in UX saying, what course can I start to get on the track? And I can't recommend any of them. So
that is
do you
true.
have any that are any value?
You're right, sadly. Genuinely, I have the same talk with one of my senior managers. She keeps saying, Sean, send the team off on training. And the only ones that I can find that do some of it well, and they should be doing all of it, is Nielsen Norman. They're actually quite expensive, but they are the godfathers of UX. I feel, I don't want to say bad things about Nielsen Norman because I love them. I think a lot of what they do is great, and thank God they were the godfathers. But they've taken a profiteering approach to UX in the last few years, where they're teaching a lot of courses that really aren't core to UX. They're opportunist. They're bolt-ons. They've just looked at the entire landscape. I mean, I worked this out. They make over £1 million every week they teach a course. Possibly more now. It's online. It's highly incentivizing for them to teach anything that has UX attached to it. So I'm a little bit disappointed that they're starting to lose some of their integrity, but their good courses are genuinely good, and you can learn a lot from them. I think you're right. There are boot camps that are just not worth their weight in poop. There are short courses that are taught by visual designers or creative directors who haven't got the experience in UX, and there are companies who've sprung up that will let anybody teach a course in UX because it adds to their portfolio. None of those things are good. I think that, again, this is why I started with the purpose of UX. I want people to be able to go out there, and when it does seem incredible that there can be no decent training, I want people to be able to look at it and go, do you know what, you're right. There really isn't any decent. This does not fulfill the purpose of UX, because ultimately we're going to start to get to a point where groups like this put training together, collect good training, and start to give it. So this is just the beginning of that.
Sean, this is Nigel here. Afternoon, sir.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. You all right?
Good.
How do you feel about so-called accredited academia, as in like London College of Communications and such, doing UX courses where they clearly do not set up the graduates for real life practices?
Yeah, it's an interesting opportunity for us, as well as a bit of a shortfall there at the moment. Like most universities, they don't teach real world skills. I think, again, I look to the future of UX Sanctuary. I think there's a great opportunity for a collective group of focused UXers to be able to reach out and help universities understand what's essential when they move into the marketplace. So we teach grads right now at DXE, and they've clearly come in with some assumptions, guesswork, and even some official training. And it's not helping them at all. In fact, there's a lot of stuff they have to unlearn. So at the moment, they're not up to scratch. But I think the UX community can reach out and start to help them. It's just going to take some organization. Could you please share some advice to someone who is trying to transition to UX? Yes, Sonia, you asked about transitioning into UX. Could you say or type what background you're coming in from? I'm curious. You might be surprised how much UX you already know. Management. Okay, good. So as you saw from the triumvirate of UX, business is critical. You need to understand how a business works, because ultimately, although everyone thinks of UX as a user-led solution, it's really not. It's a business solution. It's just that our stock in trade, our data, the skills we bring are about what the user needs to the business. And management means you understand how a business works, where its processes go and stop, who does them, how efficient they are or are not. You'll know where those bodies are buried because you'll have experienced it. In that respect, you represent an SME for us, a subject matter expert. That area of expertise is critical. You'll have assigned people to work, and many times you'll have gone, well, this doesn't work. This is delivering rubbish. this doesn't seem right, and you'll be right. Transitioning into UX from management, it's a really good start. You will need to know more about technology. All my team either do know about technology or we teach them about technology. They don't need to be developers. They don't need to be systems architects, but they will understand how reference architecture works. They will understand how development works, and they'll get taught that. So that's an area where you'll have to improve as you go. And then you've got the craft itself. And essentially at its core, this is about psychology, research, and functional architecture, or UX design in old money. So those are the things you'll have to learn. I still recommend Nielsen Norman, not even necessarily from a training point of view. They've got lots of articles that go into quite a lot of depth about various content, and they're worth looking at. I think what we're seeing more, and we're starting to push on this, is to do apprenticeship type training. I'm literally working on that at the moment, and that's because you need to be able to do the work, experience the work, and be guided, mentored as you go through it. It's hard to do all of the craft on any one project. It's unusual. And if you do it, it takes quite a bit of time. On a real UX project, none of this, you've got a week to research. Because in a week, you can only research that you need to do research. But yeah, once you've got, I'd say you've got the management, the business piece under your belt, there's bits to learn about that still. But I think if you cover a management background, that's not a big deal. Learning technology, learning the craft is next, really. Finding a company that's willing to take on apprentices at any level. It doesn't have to be, youngsters. Apprenticeships. Actually, in fact, I'd argue that UX is one of those areas where being really young, being a grad, gives you a disadvantage. It's those experiences in other areas and how business works that really helps you. And grads have to learn all of that on the job. It takes them longer. I hope that answered your question.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hello. Sorry.
Hi.
I'm cooking at the moment.
I can see. What are you making us?
I'm making cottage pie with a really, like a recipe card.
Lovely.
I got it discounted on that. So it's like £2 per meal. My question is, you were talking about business requirements and like the user needs. Yep. And in various jobs I've worked in, sometimes there is like a list of business requirements, but sure, can you talk about which order even it should go in? Because business is important, but
business. This is why I use that really simple model. I actually presented this to our director of sales recently. I wasn't sure how they were going to take it, because I was basically showing the director of sales how business works in that simple granular form. But the point is that you're reminding people that without that user need, without the willingness to give the business money for something they want, business is done. Sorry. Off. The business is done. What happens generally is there's so many businesses out there that deliver mediocrity that they're just battling with each other to deliver half-assed rubbish, basically, and people don't have that great solution. You see it occasionally, right? Apple did it famously with their iPhone. They removed a ton of functionality from things like comparative to Nokia phones. They had very little functionality. Yes, it was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but that's one element that's important. It must be aesthetically beautiful, ideally. But the functionality, it did and that was their phrase, it just works. And it just worked. They did their research. They did their user research and found out, right, the users mostly need these 10 things. We'll make sure those work seamlessly for them, intuitively, easily, and deliver on that functionality. And they did that. A lot of businesses don't. And we still see today, even in our business, that there are business leaders. And what they do is they have an idea based on a segment or a sector that they work in. And they say, okay, I've got a great idea for this product. And to a large degree, they do have a great idea. The problem is they execute really poorly. They then go away, tell their bosses, I need some seed funding. I'm going to build a proof of concept, and I'm going to launch that in front of the clients. Now, firstly, the clients are not their end users. Secondly, they've made a load of assumptions. And thirdly, when they get it to the client and the client goes, well, yeah, that's okay, but I really needed it to do this and this, and how about if you go away and do that? And it's just a round of shotgun assumptions that keep circling until they run out of time and money. And then suddenly they're going, we just have to deliver something. And that's what they're doing. And this is what we call business-led projects, where they start from the business assumptions and deliver to the user. In fact, again, they don't even deliver to the user. They miss out important things like user interviews, research, understanding that they're right, and that they're building something that's wanted, not just their assumptions, and then validation, usability testing. Once you've made those assumptions, even based on what they've told you, put it in front of those users and go, right, so does this do what you, please carry out these use cases, log in, change your name, whatever it might be. Watch them do that. If they do that seamlessly and they feedback, yeah, this is absolutely what I want, no business can fail on that. Literally, it is the formula for the most successful products. The people who are going to give you the money have just told you they want that. In fact, they've designed it for you. This always amazes me when businesses push back on this. But it's because, as I said earlier, the resistance to change is so ingrained into humans. It is very hard for them to make this UX process-led change. And we're going through it now. I have very robust discussions with some groups about why it's better for the business, and I produce a lot of data about the value, the speed, etc., and they still want to resist. So that business-led process is probably what you're used to seeing, where there is no real research, they undervalue that, and there is no usability testing, so they don't validate their assumptions, and they go around in circles until they run out of time and money. But the reality is really simple, and that's why I take it back to that simple model. If you show, look, there's a user and they have money and they have needs, and your business only came into existence to solve that. If you didn't have those, there would not be a business. Why is it so hard now to not want to give them exactly what they want? And often, businesses spiral out of control. You've probably all seen this. In the cut and thrust of doing your 9-to-5 job, you completely forget the purpose of the existence of your business. You come in, you do your job, you judge yourself by your own KPIs or the KPIs of your department, and you go home. Yes, developers are classic. Yes, I delivered 10 features this sprint. Well done, you. Were they any use? I don't care. My target was to deliver 10 features. Well, it turns out those are shit features and people don't want them. I don't care. I delivered 10 features, just like I said I would. Well done, you. And they get a round of applause and pats on the back, celebrating the fact that they've delivered these internal KPIs, and nobody's kept sight of why we're doing this at all. And that's pretty classic.
I have Luis Santamaria here. Sorry.
Hi, Luis.
Hi. I just joined late because I was struggling with getting registered on Meetup.
Not a problem.
But apologies if you already touched on that. But my experience, I've worked for past 6 years with a big Fortune 100 company, and it's exactly as you're describing, right? And not to mention that each stakeholder in a project gets measured. Their KPIs are completely different. So project manager gets measured on delivering on time.
Yep.
So he doesn't care about the quality of the product and all that stuff. But I'm a firm believer that UX has a role, very, very, very big strategic role to play.
Yes.
Before even a product is conceived.
Yep.
Right. And that's what I've worked with. We call them offering managers in a company, but they were basically product marketing or whatever it is, the name of the role. But it was exactly like you're saying. They've been in the market for a long time on that particular vertical or whatever, and they have a feeling, and they talk to a few customers, and they come up with this idea. But first, they don't think it through. Second, they don't talk to the end users. They talk to the people who pay for it.
Yep.
Right. So it's like, there's research that can be done, methodological, powerful tools in the UX, toolbox that we can use to help leverage value. Because I had a friend who used to say, the most sensitive nerve in the human being is their pocket, and getting them to put their hand in their pocket and take their money out is the holy grail, right? Yeah. And you can only do that if you deliver value to that people.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and these guys don't know what the value is because they talk to the customers, and they got one guy that says, "Oh, I really want this to." Don't even get me started. Sorry, I don't want to hijack this. But yeah, you know what I mean.
This is a safe space.
People talk to a customer, says, "Oh, what would you like? What would you like?" And the guy goes like, "Oh, I woke up with this back pain this morning. I would like a cushion on my seat." And then they designed this $30 million on 30 million pounds on a product development for a cushion on the seat.
Yeah.
Because they talk, do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. You end up with a better horse,
anyway.
right?
So
Yeah.
you may just jump in here. You hit the nail on the head where you say the most sensitive nerve is a person taking money out of their pocket. But even better is to actually get them to do the trick more than once. So if you serve them with the right products, time and again, make it as efficient and don't make them think, then they will come back.
Yeah.
That's another thing. We're creatures of habits with regards to we're comfortable when we actually have something that works for us. We won't go anywhere else, especially online. Our attention span is infinitely smaller. So we don't want to.
Oh, yeah.
We just literally want to carry on and use UX in a way that it complements our everyday life. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing
UX
that I
is
think
all
is
about
interesting
value.
I think we all agree on that, and we all think UX is important, and that's why we do it. So what is it that's stopping businesses from embracing it fully and wanting to do it the way that you? So, and how do you get them to move?
Yeah, so I can tell you how we've approached this. There's a number of, and again, this is why we come back to the purpose, I guess. There's a number of inconsistencies, and that's putting it mildly. I had one of the account delivery teams.
Did I lose connection?
Oh, no, I can hear you. I had an account delivery manager ask me during a project,
my connection.
Do you all do it your own way? And I said, no, of course we don't do it all our own way. The UX is UX. It has research, it has functional architecture, it delivers requirements to the team. Of course, it depends on the project, exactly what we do, but it's all the same process. And he couldn't believe it. He'd come across so many people. And to be fair, we're no different to many places, many UX UI who really are UI designers doing, and this is an interesting topic actually, because it's only recently I've started to talk about it in slightly less combative terms. UX UI is actually modern UI design. They do usability best practices on top of UI. And that's absolutely right. Those are the best UI designers to have.
Well,
but
if you're lucky.
But the businesses don't realize this. The businesses think that, you're right, if we're lucky. A lot of them just like the title and potentially the money and that's all they really want. They don't want to learn it. But if they can do UI design with usability best practices, those are great design. That is what a modern UI designer should be doing. If they're doing less than that, they've been left behind. Businesses don't realize this. Businesses just hear UX, and that's what it is. I got asked to leave a meeting where I was already too late, where the development team were going through their user flows, and they'd asked me to come in because they weren't working. And a developer said, "What are you doing here? You should be here at the end when we're coloring it in." And I went, "No, I'm UX." And they went, "Yeah, so you're a designer." So there's all this misconception. We need to speak with a consistent voice, and we do not. And there are a lot of charlatans out there claiming they know what they're talking about. There's a hand up. Go on.
It's me, Sean. Hi.
Hey.
I'm finally listening to your voice and listening to your ideas. I've been following you on LinkedIn for some time now.
Oh,
and
thank you. Well, I think thank you. Where are you going with this?
Yeah. So I'm quite pleased. I'm very pleased that actually you put together the UX Sanctuary.
Thank you.
Because I think these discussions, I think for some time now, we actually got lost in talking so much about what we need to do for people starting the profession that we kind of forget about taking care of ourselves as senior professionals. Yeah. And we started having more meaty discussions about, with mostly the purpose of UX. And I think that it's been amazing to listen to everything you've been saying.
Thank you.
I just would like to add just a quick suggestion to the matter of actually adding one voice and also making our process known as something that's actually it's accurate. It's not what everyone or every other person does.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that actually I come from a teaching background, so educational background, and I'm a sucker for case studies. And this is something that actually I miss a lot in UX.
Yeah.
We don't tell what we are doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't.
I don't know if you come across the problem with showing portfolios.
Yeah.
So I get asked regularly, what should I put together as my portfolio? And I go, nothing. Don't do it. Your job as a UXer is to uncover the most horrible warts of a company, expose all of their underbelly, everything that's wrong with them, and then make them a competitive advantage. And if you share any of those with their competitors online, you are definitely not going to be popular. Yes, it's true. We need to be able to, in an interview, you can talk about them and say, right, so I worked for a bank and their problem was this, and I did this to solve it, and now they've made 20 million more pounds. Fine. But to put together a portfolio, I won't interview people if they've got a full visual portfolio. I literally just throw their CV in the bin. I don't care what it says. They're exposing everyone to it. So that's a really terrible idea. So case studies, absolutely, internally. So good. You're right. Businesses will bite into that. And I get asked about this all the time by sales teams. Can you show us your case studies? So internally, I can. But externally, that just does not really help people because
they're
giving away trade secrets.
I understand that. I think there are ways we could actually add it up to a point that actually you're not actually telling too much, but but at least you're giving some detail about processes. And I also think from the perspective that this can serve both for businesses and for people who are actually getting their UX legs as well. So, but anyway, it's something that we're actually going to have a longer discussion in the future, I'm sure.
And I'm going to start going through bits about our process, because that's one of our really strong selling points to the business, is when they see the UX-led process. We've had clients go, I want that. That really obviously works. And in fact, we've had a client say, I don't believe you. I don't believe you could do that. How could you possibly? There's no resistance, no friction. You're delivering everything. And I'd gone, well, tell me where it's broken. And they go, well, it's not. But we don't work that way, and nobody's ever suggested we should work that way. So how can that possibly be that good? And we don't know. And we go, well, it's because it's a UX-led process. Let somebody do it. So it does really work, the process, and we will definitely get to this in future meetings. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Sean. This is Nigel. This is
hang on, Nigel. I've got sorry, I can barely see the name.
Milita.
Hello.
Milita.
Hi.
Yeah, Milita. I put my hand up. Yeah. Actually, I have two kind of topics. I just want to come back to that business-led designed products. I'm in that kind of situation at the moment. So we are heavily led by business. There were PMs doing something that they called user research.
Oh God.
I wouldn't call I wouldn't call it that, but so I was hired as a UX designer.
Yes.
And obviously I refused to color in the lines, right?
Good.
Good thing is head of design is okay. I'm transitioning into a research role.
Yeah.
However, research is going to be a bottleneck because I'm just one person. So can you please create a kind of a guide so that, our back office guys can talk to users?
Oh, no, I'm going to say no straight away. There's a reason for that, right?
There's a reason for that. They have never done interviews.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they are talking to the users. They're part of customer support type of thing. So fine. They can talk to the users as in their role as customer support, which is, I don't mind. However, they began asking them all sorts of stupid questions.
Yes.
And then they start filling in our backlogs with, this user said they want this feature, so when are you going to build it? And there's me saying, no, wait.
So familiar.
And why is preparing the research taking so long? And
when you could just guess it. I mean, it's obvious, right? I mean, that's what the users want. This is the classic business, as you say, business led. I infamously.
Any tips on strategy? Like,
one of them is about finding somewhere to hide the bodies. I firmly recommend that. So start there. At some point, you are going to have to kill one of them and hang them up just to make an example to the others. I told a product owner that they could come into the interviews with us because I thought that might help pacify them. But as soon as they got in there, I told them they weren't allowed to speak, which doesn't go down terribly well. But it's really important because, as you know, they are led by biases. They are not trained like us to remove biases. I'm not joking, we spend years eliminating cognitive biases, learning them and eliminating them. They do not. Nobody else does. No. They make tons of assumptions. And again, back to system one thinking, they make tons of assumptions. And it's very hard to reason with someone who's on autopilot in system one, where they're just going, well, it's obvious. Well, that's what the user wants. Well, I know I'd want that. Confirmation bias, please. And that's what I had a BA tell me that the users wanted something, and I said, no, I don't think that's true. I know, I've spoken to the users, not one person has mentioned that. And he said, yeah, I know what users want. I'm a user too. I've done this. I'd like that. And I said, okay, look, I'll go away and do some research just to validate your position. Not a single person wanted it. I can't remember what it was, but not a single person wanted it. When I told him, he stood there in front of the whole room and said, the user is wrong. I mean, you can't do anything with them except wait for them outside, maybe, and then they're not in work the next day. But that's not always a possibility. Again, you're back to the value. One of the things that we do most, and I lecture my team about this endlessly, and they're always quite surprised when they first get the training, is I say, look, these are our various different deliverables, our artifacts, what we do in research, what we do in architecture. This is the most important document to you ever. It's called the risk log. And we've got a template. In fact, maybe I'll share that with the group. We've got a risk log, and it's got a couple of columns, basically what happened, in your own words, what you think the impact's going to be, what the mitigation against that should be, who's responsible for this decision and thus for the mitigation, and then what you did, and so the current status. Invariably, when it comes to people like that, they won't do anything about it. So, they decided this is good for the user and they're not going to let you do the research. Even if you think this is just a possibility, I don't know if this will be a problem. If you think it's a problem, you write it in the risk log. And at the end of the project, you then do a review, a post-mortem. And you'll be able to see, right, we told you this and you said that, and we said this will happen, and look, it happened. And we told you this, and you went ahead and did that, or you didn't let us do this, and we said that would happen, and look, it happened. These are all impacts on your value, on how people receive your product, on what they think of your brand. When there's a post-mortem at the end of a project, and we tend to push hard for that, you can really, we dress it up as, well, it's not dressing up as true, but we present it as learning. What have we learned from the project? What went right? What went wrong? Well, really, what went right? We know what went right because it would have been the UX stuff. What went wrong was when people didn't let us do our job. And our risk logs are damning sometimes. And not because we use harsh language, but because the clear-cut consequences of what they did are right there in black and white. And as well as us saying, you need to do this or this will happen. It's in the risk log. And them going, no, it'll be fine. It's not always straight away, and unfortunately, and I am the worst person for this, it's not something you can fix straight away. It's not an instant fix. It's a slow learning process over projects. But as it goes on, as you maintain that risk log, every time they see it, every time you come out leadership with this risk log and go, look, this is the reason that we think there were problems with or it failed. This needs to be fixed for next time. Next time we mustn't do this. They can see who was responsible. Those names start to come up. And slowly but surely, bad people get weeded out, or they learn the lessons. UX is taken more seriously. It shows that we've got this nous for what works and what doesn't, what makes a successful product. And we don't have a nous for it. We've got a program of work we do. As you do that, things start to improve. If it's really bad, I have to tell you, there are companies that I would just leave, and I have, where it's not possible for you to do your job. It's full of idiots. It really. We had one guy who nearly caused me to leave. His KPI was to reduce the number of calls that the support desk were getting, and we were rebuilding the support desk system. So he rode in on his horse and said, right, I know what we'll do. Don't need UX. I'm going to go straight to development. And we went, don't be ridiculous. And he said, no, I'm doing it. I've worked on 1 million projects before this. I know what I'm doing. So he went and sat with the developers and he made a change. And we found out later what he'd done is he'd removed the contact details. So nobody could call the help desk. So
well, that would remove
KPI met. Genius. But this happens all the time. And again, as soon as you know that, risk log. Yeah, it's great. This meets the KPI. But what's going to happen is, and you have such ammunition, not just to get rid of bad people, really, but much more to show the credibility and the business understanding, the business expertise of user experience, and therefore why it's valuable to the business. So I'm going to actually present on the risk log.
We actually have a big problem where we work on a couple of products, and we have like 3 completely different mission squads working on the same product, not communicating with each other, but we're sticking to the DS, so everything looks the same, like material design.
Yeah.
Oh,
Google material design.
Google knows better.
Google's the worst UX ever,
including their horrible input buttons. Never mind. Never mind that. We have a mission critical process that was designed by a PM for his own use. And of course, there was a junior designer working on that. He just told her, do it like I told you to.
Yep. Yeah, and that often happens. They throw their weight around it. We can get around that by helping PMs see the value from thematic insights. This is what the users want most. Yeah. Here's a priority order. Here you go. And they go, brilliant. I'll just look good now because I'll just deliver what they most want. And that's always really good. Sorry, someone asked, do I use Sketch or Figma? Sorry, did you have another question?
That was me. I was making a joke.
Right, okay.
When you were talking about the process.
Neither. Right. No, absolutely not. Axia all day long. It's literally the only tool.
Too difficult for me. I'm more of a UX spin.
Actually, see, that's I have a rant about this all the time. Yes, Axia is not as easy as the other tools, but it's not supposed to be. It's true. They could improve their UX, ironically. No question. And in fact, I've spoken to them and they are going to sponsor our event going forward. So they will be presenting. And they'll be giving away the odd license as well. But we definitely need to get them to improve it. And people definitely need to learn to use tools that are appropriate for prototyping, actually deliver on the purpose of prototyping, rather than just screen to screen. Sorry, hand up there, right?
Yeah, that's
Alessandra.
Me. It's Luis. No, it's not. It's Luis Santa Maria. I just realized my daughter's name is on the interface.
Today and forevermore, you are Alessandra.
Seriously. Yeah, just a quick one, because I had a big debate with a colleague today about Axure and InVision, and I'm a big Axure fan.
Yeah.
And he had a fair point towards these simpler prototyping tools, which is, sometimes you just got to get something out.
Oh God, no! That is the worst answer ever. I've just got to get something out.
But don't you think it depends on what the purpose is? Because I would not change Axure. I think my experience is, if you're trying to assess usability issues and get good insights from a UI design that you're doing, you definitely need Axure. No other tool will give you enough
interaction
to allow you to find out usability issues before you start developing. That's And that was my point to him. But I don't know. I just do think that some of these earlier, quicker tools have their place as well. Don't you think?
No. And I'll explain why.
No. Okay. Fair enough.
There's a reason we prototype. We prototype so that we can test that functionality, so that we can test that, because it's quite a simple formula, right? We have user types, say a customer, just to keep it really simple, and they have use cases. So maybe they want to log in, and that use case will have a user journey, and it will contain happy and unhappy paths. I logged in fine and got into the system, or I forgot my password, or whatever. So each of those is laid out as a user journey, and then that user journey is turned into a prototype to make sure on a number of, and this is really critical, on a number of levels that it works. It tests that it's acceptable to the user, that they can use it simply and easily, intuitively, that it fulfills all of the happy and unhappy paths of that scenario, that use case, and that they can go through those. And we test it so we can watch them do it. That it is then presented also to the systems and developers guys to make sure the systems behind it can deliver on those requirements, and the developers know what they're building and there's no limitations or issues. So we have a prototype that must replicate what they're going to experience, both for the user to test and for the developer to build from, because otherwise you're showing them a visual and going, right, so when you click on that, this is what happens. No. What happens there is something else happens. And that's no way to test anything properly. If they're just doing design, then you're back to just doing business-led designs.
And the other point was exactly what you just said there, which is, if I can prototype it, and sure, any developer can do it, and I don't want any excuse that can't be done.
Yeah, God, yeah. Oh, God.
Look,
you do not want to hear me.
So you can do it, mate. You can do it.
You do not want to hear me or Nigel on the call talk about what developers can't do. By God.
Yeah, fair enough.
As ex-developer as well, I'm an ex-developer. So when and that's an advantage, make no mistake. But developers saying, yeah, can't do it that way. That is one of the big hiccups we experience as well in UX.
Yeah.
And you need to know enough about development to get around that.
Yeah. I have another
developer help.
Oh, sorry. I have another thing I would like to ask you guys.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's just something that I think is a good conversation to have, which is something that happened in a previous job I had, and a big discussion on who owns the user experience. And I think that is an interesting discussion, because I don't think it's the UX people alone. Because no matter how well we design this is Alessandro, by the way, guys.
Hi.
No matter how well you design something, if the developers don't implement it properly, or if the business has a wrong aim at what you're doing, well, as is mostly the case, right? We say, we see the car crash, saying, stop, the business is going the wrong direction with this. But you know what I mean? All these things are depend. The user experience is dependent on these factors that we sometimes have no control over.
And you're right. And we don't. Well, we do own it. It's not true, but we don't fail to collaborate. People think collaboration is like when everyone gets together and makes all the decisions. That's just not true. Collaboration is when you involve the right people at the right time and give them the data to do their job better. And with developers, for example, when we're doing research, sort of coming towards the end of research, we get the lead developer involved in a consultancy capacity. And he gets to ask questions and give us information about how that research might manifest into a solution. He'll get a sense of how big the project is, and he can start to build out his team behind it. He'll get a sense of what type of technology is necessary, and he's got lead time to pick out those technologies and those skill sets and shape and size the team. That gives them huge lead time they don't normally have. Again, the UX-led process is a beautiful thing to behold. Everybody gets lead time. Everybody's involved with their own expertise, giving to us as well as taking from us. And ultimately, they get that lead time to do their jobs really well. And this is the most beautiful thing. As an ex-developer, I used to hate the fact that I'd spend all my time rewriting code till I had this Frankenstein code. And it was all because people had no idea what they wanted. I hadn't just done the research. If what I really wanted to do was to know what I was supposed to build so I could be creative with that. I could embrace the best technology and experiment with things and produce something that no one had seen. Most developers don't have what should be common to them, but actually ends up being the privilege of doing their job properly. If UX get involved early, and they do, well, we are certainly, and you get those developers in at a consultancy level, they've got all this time to plan that. And they know they're not going to have to recode it. Again, the whole thing falls together so beautifully, but it is getting the business to buy into this, and it's a slow process at the moment.
But then I have had situations where previous design teams have, done the UX research, done the UX design, done the UI design, handed everything to the developers. Developers went in a cave.
Oh yeah.
Came back out with something completely different, right? And then you go in the customer and you listen to the customer saying, "Oh yeah, I don't like the user experience here; is really rubbish." Blah 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 blah. And then everybody in the business looks at you and you go like, "Hang on a minute," and then you go back to what the team designed.
Yeah.
And you look, it's completely different, right?
Yeah, our process doesn't do that. So our process, when we get there's literally a demarcation line, and again defined in the Agile Manifesto. At the end of the functional architecture, when we've done usability testing, when we have a working prototype and we've written the user stories because they come straight from the user journeys, as a user type, I want to carry a use case because it adds this user value. We can write those beautifully, easily, and we do. During that, at that point, we then hand over to the developers, but we don't disappear. We don't relinquish that. We now act as a consultant. So we're in on the Agile part at every sprint meeting. Once every 2 weeks, or maybe some touch points when they've got questions, we're available to them to help them. And they know we're not trying to make it difficult. They know we're trying to make their job easy. So they'll reach out to us, and we'll be involved during the sprints planning and talk to them about the stories that they're delivering, because we know them intimately and we've got the prototypes attached to them. And we can go, so as you can see, this is, and they'll have already had involvement early on. So their lead developer will already know a lot about what is going to happen. So all of that goes away. Now, it's true, from time to time, we have experienced developers who are just set in their ways and they just want to do it their way and they don't care what you say. And that will cause problems. But again, it goes straight in the risk log. And then at the end, who's accountable? They are.
Yeah. I mean, even being, because my team we're always on the sprint meetings and PI plannings and all that stuff. But what seemed to have worked with us, right, was a mix of finding good developers in the team, and having weekly meetings with the developers where we would basically check that they were doing what we designed, and they were being faithful to it, right?
And you do have to
lo and behold, as soon as the best developer got moved to another project and we got moved to the other project, so we couldn't pay attention to the previous project.
Well, then they've got KPIs, you see. They have to deliver so many features in so many weeks, and then it doesn't matter what you wrote. They're going to cut corners. And again, the whole process supports itself. A UX-led process means they've got more time, they've got more lead time, and they've got no changes. And they hate changes. They can truly story point these stories, and they're right first time. The only limitations they have generally with the UX-led process is when they're trying to story point the technical stories. That might be a limitation. We only affect the functional user stories. They might need to connect to database or something. That's the only real limitation they'll end up with. So when you get that process right end to end, it starts to build on itself, and it removes a load of the ripples further down the chain. So everyone's able to do their job the way they want to. Marketing is a classic example. When we build a product properly, you're no longer, as a marketer, having to try and convince people it will give you more hair and make you attractive to the opposite sex. You are literally able to just concentrate on awareness, which is, the core purpose of marketing, because they're not trying to convince someone to buy it. We've gone to people and said, what do you want? We've had the business build what they want. They only need to focus on awareness. So suddenly that ripple, that problem, that combat area that we used to have with marketing is gone. And in fact, a lot of the time they're going, well, that's not right. Surely we need to do more. No, just make them aware. And it's the same with developers too. You get them involved, you get the systems architect involved early. We tend to keep the PO at arm's length. because we're empowering them. We're going, yeah, here's your solution, here's the priorities, here's what your users say add the most value. Go ahead, tell the boss you've got that nailed. Good luck. And if they're good, if they know that that's good for them, they'll go off and do that and leave us to do our job. It's when they step in and they start going, I've got a good idea, I know what the users are like, and then we have to get the chloroform out.
Yeah, cool.
Let's see if there's any more questions. Topic ideas. Thank you, Milika. UX Pin. Do you know I haven't actually used UX Pin? I'm ashamed to say. I've heard things about it. I made the mistake of using Figma a while ago and went, oh God, no, that was a bad idea.
I have to use Figma for my job, and I was trying to create a prototype in it, and then I realized that
that's not what it was for.
Yeah, cool. It's a click-through prototype, so the user can click through it, but they can't really interact with the product.
No, it's just a clickable pictures. You can go from one picture to the next.
Clickable pictures.
Yeah, right. And any designer can do that.
Better version of interactive components. Fine, okay, maybe. But then I go into UX Pin and I create a fully functional registration form together with all the validations and everything. And the developers are like, wow, you can actually do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you learn how to program? Oh, about 20 years ago when I was a programmer.
Yeah.
And then I hear stuff like, yeah, we have a problem with that validation. I'm like, no, you don't. You just don't know how to use regex. So that's not my problem.
Yeah. And follow the user journeys.
Oh, we don't have those.
Oh.
What user journeys? We don't have those. I actually have to now run, like the company is 6 years old. I'm running research.
Hello, another UXer has arrived.
Another UXer, yeah, possibly. Yeah, so that's horrible.
Yes, I think once you start to get the UX process in place, and it isn't an overnight thing, you'll start to find that things will improve. You'll be able to change some of these things. And the important thing here, right, is that we have to trade on business value. Too many UXers get caught up in why the user's so important and why aren't you listening to the user? And we're losing sight of the fact that businesses, they're not empathetic towards the users at all. They're a totalitarian state. They want money, and if you can show them how to get it, they'll listen to you, and if you can't, they won't. Now, as it happens, as you can see from the original really simple process, that is literally what we do better than anyone. The user will part with the most money for us. The most users will part with the most money for us. We literally couldn't be more valuable to a business. It's just they don't realize that yet. And that's part of the ongoing process. That's literally the level we're at as UXers right now, is getting people to understand that level of value we can deliver into the business consistently. It's when our process is broken, people don't understand the purpose of UX, they compromise what we do, they force you into doing design without any research because they think they can do it. And then they go, oh, why didn't it work? And worse still, they often go, I think someone else said this, oh, the UX was rubbish, which is never rubbish if it's done right.
I'm meeting this morning and look at slides that said they've done UX improvements.
Oh, yeah. And then they accuse you of not being a team player if you kick up a stink. They think UX is everybody's. It's not. And I'm a very strong proponent of this. We are not a community exercise. You do not democratize any other discipline. Why on earth would you democratize UX? We study.
No, that's what I want to ask.
Yeah.
Why can't I do development? If I can't do development of our product, then how come our inside sales guys can do user research?
Because they think it's just a simple task. I had someone at our current company when I first arrived say, it's great that you do UX, but can you just give us like a sheet of tips and tricks so we can do it? It was all I could do to bite my tongue. I'd swear to God, I nearly went over the table at him. So close. It's very frustrating. It is, and I am the least patient of most people. So if I can do it, you can definitely do it. But there has to be an outcome. You have to have a roadmap out of this. And for me, and for DXC, that's been the UX process and focusing on value. And we do outreach. So I always tell my team, ask for forgiveness, not permission. By which I mean, if you can find a way to improve what you do, how you do it, speak to the right people, go around people, do it, get your job done to the best of your ability. And if it comes back on you, I will take the heat without question. And I have done so numerous times. So it's really important to think about how you could move UX forward if you feel it's a company you want to stay at, because that means things like going and speaking to sales. Well, I've just done it recently, actually. Oh, well, I'm allowed to because I'm head of UX. But I've done it before, where I've just found people and gone and spoken to them and said, look, I want to talk to you about how UX going to help your job or help add value. And without question, without exception, ever, when I finish talking to people about UX, they all go, I had no idea that's what UX did. None. I thought it was some sort of design. Literally without exception.
Exactly. It's because of the UI UX designers.
Yeah, very much. And they are, I've said this to people before, they're a cancer on the face of UX. There's so many of them. They are like a virus at this point. And you know what you have to do with viruses. I'm just, the sanctuary is designed to be exactly what it says in the tin, a sanctuary. I've been fairly direct with people who feel that they should be UI designers in this group. Those people have not joined. I don't think it would be a good place for them to be. It's great if I've got a UI designer on my team who wants to move into UX, and we had a very honest discussion about this, that she would not be doing UI design anymore. There's way too much for her to do and to learn. It has to. I mean, Nigel was on the call. He's an ex-UI designer. He tell you the same thing. The change in mindset is critical. So I think it's very important that they can move into UX, and I think it's important there's a path for them to do that. But it's equally critical that they understand they've got to unlearn design, not focus on that. And that is at the moment causing us problems. Sorry, someone.
It's an absolute 100% accuracy there. It's one of the biggest challenges I came across moving from the discipline of being a user interface or graphic design into the realm of working within user experience. I've just put a note inside the chat saying it's a critical barrier to how UX is perceived top down. I get it all the time in disparate companies that I've worked in, even now. They just, because the word design is part of the description, they feel that UX falls underneath UI design. It's not even a different component, actually a subset of UI design.
It doesn't help that we have the term design in there. Absolutely. UX design, UI design is like one letter in the difference. Very easy for them to make assumptions about what we do.
People are lazy in their assumptions.
Well, it's system one thinking, yeah.
Absolutely.
In my company, it's UI is part of UX.
It shouldn't even be in the same building. I always tell people this, it's always ironic. We do information architecture as part of our role. I mean, it's literally a task for us. It's not even a role, and we completely consume it. And yet you think that UX IA would be a much more appropriate cross title for us because we do both. UI has the least, I've actually got a demonstration of this when I show the evolution of UX about how much we have to do with UI. When UI starts, we finished. We're handing over to you. Here's a canvas, a functional canvas that will deliver the functionality. Do your UI to that. And that's a good relationship. That's healthy for the business. But they still don't get it yet in many places. They're just lots of knee-jerk assumptions. Sorry, someone asked me to repeat. Riri, are you still on? Asked me to repeat something about the risk log. I don't know.
Yes, please.
Hello. Do you want the content of the risk log?
I am fairly new to the UX topic. I'm coming from the tourism industry, and I'd like to move over because even in the tourism industry, I was very, very engaged in the customer journey, actually, digitally and in the hotel, and actually from the start point, like where's the first touch point of a customer and how do we satisfy the needs of the customer. So I would really like to transition to UX because I think the field is broader and you can do more. So I'd like to be somewhere UX education based.
Yeah.
And I have just right now the first time come across the risk log, and I think it's so beautiful because often you just get something, you know, shouted at you being like, oh, we have to do this. And you're like, okay, nice. Yeah. Can I have it in written, please? Because afterwards it's going to fall back to me if I start something without any kind of, you know, person that I'm like, this is the person that told me that.
Yeah.
So I think risk log is something really beautiful, and I'd like to know more about it if possible.
You are welcome to. I'm just digging one out now as we speak. While I'm digging that out, I want to say, brilliant that you're coming into UX. People who come into UX later from other backgrounds bring two really important things with them. They bring business and world experience, which you can't get without experiencing it. You just got to work your way through it. So older UXers tend to have much broader experience, much more usable. It really is something you learn over time. Plus, you bring SME, subject matter expertise from the travel industry. So it gives you a specialism straight away. And you've already started to think of this classically with SMEs. They're the people we hold in great value because those are the people we interview. Those people represent the user in many cases because they know what all the users have been saying. They know all the problems they've been experiencing, and they've thought them through. They've gone, oh my God, why hasn't anyone fixed this? I've complained about this for 2 years and nobody's changed it. And they really know the insight to that. So it's very exciting that you're coming into UX, and I think you're gonna love it. Let me just find this. Here's my risk log. There we are. So in my risk log, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. And they are as follows. I've got date of the event. To be honest, I will share this with the group anyway. Trying to think where I'll put it. I'm going to think about where to put files for you guys because we do need to be able to share stuff. Share docs. I'll work on that. It's got a title, so a simple title to reference whatever that incident might have been. You know, PO decided what the users want. A description, so data on the incident, not insight or solution, just, you know, data on this day or the date that was there. This person came and talked to me about this and said they were going to do that. And then the impact, your insight on the likely impact of this if it's not resolved. So if they said, we're not going to do research, we're just going to build this, then your insight might be, well, without the research, clearly this functionality is not proven. I think from my experience, it's probably going to lead to this problem. You know, you can put your own experience on it too. It shows your insight as an individual as well as the UX process. Remediation, there's another column then about what's the best solution to prevent the impact. Now, it might sound as simple as fire this idiot, but it also might be they want this functionality included as a business, fair enough, but there needs to be a week's worth of research with these user types in order to be sure it's valuable. And again, always return your conversations to value. And value is measured in multiple metrics. It depends who you're talking to. Value to a developer might be how quickly they're going to develop and how many iterations they're going to go through, ideally none. Value to sales might be how many more jobs you're going to get out of talking to the client. Value for the business is literally value in dollars. So think about that. Remediation should be what you think they should do to change it in order to deliver on what they want, or if it's not feasible, if it's just a completely stupid idea and it's causing problems, that it should not be done at all. Then you've got the owner column, which is the decision maker, the person responsible who could authorize remediation. And they're often referenced in a different document we do, an org chart, but that's for another day. And then actions and outcomes. So what actions you took as a result of this incident. And that doesn't mean writing it in the risk log that you might have gone and spoken to someone, you might have complained, you might have tried to fix the problem. What actions, if any, the risk owner took in response when you told them. And it might be they decided to do nothing. You can record that. Or you couldn't even contact the right person. You need to show you took some action, or as much action as was possible at least, and raise the risk. and identified the risk. So that's basically it, those 7 columns. And what happens at the end is we stopped calling it a post-mortem because it implies something died, and we're hoping it won't. So we call it post-analysis. And what we do at the end, and I haven't got the document here, is we do a post-analysis timeline, and we go through where it started, at which point in the timeline of the project we raised the risk, what it was. We can show the impact. 2 months later this happened, or at the end it happened, and then we'd raise another risk here and another risk here and another risk here, and it becomes this quite visual timeline guide. And that's when you're doing the analysis, and we usually draw that out. So we're using the risk log and going, right, so we started on the 5th of January, we did this, within a week this happened, and then 2 weeks later this happened, and then there was a delay in the delivery, and we know it's because of this risk back here that we said. And you can start to visualize how it works. But I think that's a strong enough project to actually do a sanctuary talk on and go through that with everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. It raised another question of when to apply those. Like, when do you bring it up to the decision taker?
The instant it happens. Do not hesitate for even a second. The instant this happens, I tell my team this. In fact, I tell them off for this. The instant it happens, write it in the log right then, right there, and then speak to the person involved with that log and say, look, you did this. Obviously, this is a problem. I think this is going to be very bad. Look, here's what I think is going to happen. This is what I think we should do about it. This is the remediation. And if you don't, I'm concerned you're going to lose this value. It's going to cost us problems. The developers won't do this, whatever. You've got something in writing. It's slightly compelling for them as well when they see you've got something in writing and you're taking that proactive step towards risk logging. They become much more wary about what they do, which is an unintended happy consequence. But equally, they've got that in front of them then. They've thought about it. And sometimes they will come back and go, do you know what? You could be right. That remediation, talk to me about it. And you'll be able to move forward. As I say, the risk log is one of those really, really important documents that we carry all the time, from the very beginning to the very end. And it's one of those things that moves us forward. It allows us to increase the maturity level of UX within the company, because people can take that data seriously. Us, the development team, the business later on, the stakeholders, everybody.
Okay. Visually speaking now, is it a document that even the person the person who wants to change something can access? Like, is it an open log, or being like, oh, okay, this person told me off. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think if they're telling you off about something, often that's an indication that they've just made a decision they don't like, that you pointed out it's wrong. And certainly you wouldn't word it that way. You go back to the decision. They said we should do I feel this is going to cause this problem, and I think we should do this, and this is the name of the person. It might be that when you talk to them about this, they go, look, I'm sorry, this is what the BA did about the users being wrong. I talked to him about it and said, look, I've even, the remediation was to do some research. I did the research, went back, my actions were to have done the research and present them to him. And he said, no, the user's wrong. And that's another risk entry. And I said, right, the users are wrong. And he said, yes, they're wrong. Just do it. So I went, all right, fine. I'll make an entry of that. I think you're going to fail because you didn't listen to the users, and they're the ones buying this product. And although it was potentially a little contentious between us, he was already telling me how to do my job based on his arrogance. And there's no reason UXers should have to put up with that. What we do is incredibly good for the business if we're allowed to do it. There's too many people who don't like change and who are insecure because of our work. And honestly, our efficacy, what we deliver really, really works. And what they're doing a lot of the time is half-arsing it. And they get shown up for that. And that causes some conflict. Make no mistake, that will cause you some conflict from time to time. But ultimately, you'll end up surrounded by good people who are genuinely good at their job. So yeah, you can leave the risk log where they can see it, by all means. I think you've got to be careful, and this is coming from me, you've got to be careful not to put anything in there that's in any way personal or attacking on a personal level. It's got to be all about the value that's impeded by it. But we do ours in Exure as well. And so we can publish that to a shared site where they can see it. So they can watch the prototype come together, the user journeys and the risk log coming together. We have a whole big template for this. And that means everybody has access to this. They can see what's going on. We can give anyone a link to the risk log and they can just see it. Of course, they can't do anything with it. They can't change it, but they can see it.
So, Sean, one of the things, I'll just jump in there about the risk log.
Yeah.
The risk log is also to help mitigating that risk coming in an issue.
Yes. Oh, God, yeah.
So, for instance, some companies, they use the risk log as a way of arse covering, but it should never be as such. It should, like you would rightly said, as soon as a risk comes up, you write it down and you socialize it to the key stakeholders. But one of the key components of that risk log is to stop that risk becoming an issue. And if it does become an issue, that's when we visualize it in our big plan, so we can see how decisions were made, when they were made, and the impact that fell out of those risks becoming issues.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, thank you very much for that, because very often we had some troubles going through with documentation, because after every meeting you have a documentation and everybody gets, to see it. But then person A says this, person B does this, person C thought it has to be done like this, so documentation actually never reached the length of what the risk log actually does, because there was no envisioning of what person A, B, and C do, right? So person A, B, and C do something, and it has never reached the point of envisioning into the future where it could lead to. So this is why I think that the risk log is really, really nice. So in case you would like to go in depth in another time with that,
I will, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always been popular and at work. And it's interesting when you get to a point with a project where it's becoming difficult, where it's not really delivered what it's supposed to. The sales team often want a post-analysis, and you can offer that to them. You can go, yeah, we can actually talk you through what we did, end to end, how long it took, when decisions were made that impacted the delivery. We've done it before, and they want that. Of course, some of the team members who are responsible for this failure won't want that, and they don't have to attend. This isn't about, we've got to be really careful about this. This isn't about finger pointing. This is about learning from a project that succeeded and or failed, so that we can improve the bits that were bad. We can make better decisions next time as a team, although invariably it's not the UX people making the bad decisions. And we can keep doing the things that are working really well. And again, I know this plays to our hand, but invariably that's doing the UX process. It's really important how you sell this into the team and into the business, that this is an opportunity to learn and improve, because it really is. It's just that it may not always feel that way, because invariably there are no fingers pointed at us, which is why we're always comfortable keeping the risk log, because we want things to work well, and people are caught in that old-fashioned way of approaching problems where somebody has a guess at what will work, business-led solution, or a client's come in and said, I've got a problem, and God help us, they design think it. So they spend half a day all getting together deciding what the problem is rather than researching it, and then they go straight into development, which is no different to the current way they do it. They just get to wrap it in a nice shiny new design thinking label, and we end up with a product that really doesn't work, that really wasn't researched, that really wasn't tested, and everybody's pointing the finger at everybody else. And the risk log takes that away, because the risk log is easy to keep. You write things down as soon as they happen. It's a simple entry, and it's only at the end when you go back through and dissect it that you get that complex map, that matrix of what really went on during the project and how that's affected the outcomes. And that's when you put a little bit of work into it. At the time, it's really easy to keep.
So I guess you also talk over different departments, because probably the developers have a different kind of insight of what happened, and they might also have a risk log adding to your information, right?
Yeah, they will. Invariably, developers keep a risk log of their own. It's a bit more focused on what they're doing and some of the impacts that's on them. And they're at the end of the project, so it's slightly different, but it's always worth talking to them. And of course, seeing the different interpretations of what happened is really useful. It really is a learning experience. And again, it's about this. Sometimes the excuse is we don't want to use it. We don't want to have this because we don't want to. We're not that kind of company. We're not about blame. And it's a glib excuse not to have this, because this isn't about blame. This is about learning and genuine, legitimate responsibility. If someone's responsible for delivering something and they don't because they're not doing it the optimal way or the right way, or they need training, then those things need to be addressed. If we get really PC about this, nothing ever changes. It's just going to be terrible for us. And actually, this is it's almost a talk about UX in its own right. We are not PC, right? And the reason we're not PC is not because we're Nazis. It's because we only care about data. We uncover data. It is whatever it is. If we uncovered data that said all of the people that want to buy your products are Nazis, we're not going to bury that because they are. We're going to say, here's the data. We just don't care about that. What we care about is that we've given you factual numbers you can work with. As a result, that tends to permeate most of what we do. We're really very much about facts. And that affects how we report on failures in the project as well, how we interact with people. It's perhaps cold, hard data is a little too cold and hard, but it is very much about one of the purposes of UX is to gather data unencumbered by bias, opinion, or partisan position. We just want to know what that data is, because that data tells us what the best solution will be. And if all your customers are sea lions or Nazis, it's irrelevant. That's what they are. That's where the money is. You're the business. Use this data correctly.